Hey everybody, it's Doc. This is Patty. Welcome to the channel. You have reached the segment where we shoot the bull about cars, and today
we're talking about GM Super Cruise.
So this really is one of my favorite subjects.
Yes, it is.
I love the whole idea of semi-autonomous driving and actually getting to the point where cars can drive themselves. Mostly because, as we get older, I think our driving capabilities diminish, and older drivers get a little bit weird as far as driving at night and driving in the rain. You smile, but it's true.
I know, yeah. I know.
And
I just don't like to put myself in that category, but here we are.
Here we are, and we're kind of an interesting generation because we're 60, and there's a percentage of our classmates, people that are our age, that have totally adapted to new technology.
Yes.
And there's the other group that has not, and they still have flip phones.
Well, they refuse to advance into technology.
Yeah. And
I fall somewhere in between, I think. You're all about technology.
To a degree. I mean, if it's easy to use, I'm all for it. If you have to really work at it, where you're actually working harder to use the technology than you are to actually do whatever subject it is, then not so much.
Which brings us to today's topic. GM Super Cruise.
GM Super Cruise. So as you can see, I'm not using my hands on the steering wheel, and that's truly what defines the difference between GM Super Cruise and all of the other semi-autonomous systems.
It's also what truly defines the anxiety that I have at times.
You have anxiety.
Oh my goodness.
And it's really nice,
I know.
When we first got the Tesla and we used Autopilot. Of course, Tesla's system, you have to keep your hand on the steering wheel, whereas with GM Super Cruise, you have a camera that watches your eyes and watches your face to make sure that you're looking forward and paying attention. Whereas the Tesla system merely requires a weighted hand on the wheel, and you could be doing anything and the car would be driving itself. So I think this is a safer system. And, as you can see, I can look away for a few seconds.
Right.
The system will, I'd say it gives you about 15 to 20 seconds before it starts chirping at you and telling you you need to look ahead. And if you don't respond to it and put your hands on the steering wheel or look ahead,
forward, right.
It will actually bring the car to a stop. It'll safely stop it right in the lane. It won't pull over. And then it will notify OnStar that there's something wrong with the driver.
You've had an event.
You've had an event, yes. Which at our age is possible.
All right.
So I guess we need to talk a little bit about what defines the difference between GM Super Cruise and all of the other systems.
Okay.
Now, you've had experience with the Toyota Safety Sense.
Yes.
In the Corolla, and you've driven that. You don't seem to mind it so much.
No.
Yeah, I think you primarily use just the adaptive cruise part of it.
Yeah, a lot of that is just me, my mindset. It takes me a while to adapt to anything new. That's just the way I am. We've come to love it.
You'll get used to it. I'm surprised you haven't adopted this yet with as much as I use it.
I like my hands on the wheel, and I don't even really like cruise control, period. I would drive any distance not using cruise control if it didn't affect the mileage so much. I'd rather just drive than use cruise control.
So you fall into the category of resistance.
Right?
The resistance. The one thing to understand with the GM Super Cruise, like I said, the difference is I don't have my hands on the steering wheel, so it's truly hands-free. And the reason it can do that, so if we compare this to, say, the Tesla system, this is probably most comparable to enhanced autopilot, meaning that there's lane centering, there's adaptive cruise control, and to some degree, it can change lanes one way or the other, either with a prompt from you or on its own. Now, with this car, I've turned off the self-lane changing feature because I don't care for it in the respect that I'm afraid that if someone's coming up from us really fast behind us, that it's not going to respond appropriately, and there'll be an issue. So I prefer to keep that under my own power. And when I say under my own power, all I have to do is tap the turn signal. The car looks around. Of course, I'm looking around as well, and then it changes the lane. And to go back, I also change the lane back. Whereas if I left that feature on, we would come up on a car, it would change lane and put itself back into the other lane.
There's a tractor.
All right, so we got a tractor coming up. We're going to change our lane. I just tap the turn signal. There we go.
He still has no hands on the wheel.
No hands on the wheel.
Look, Mom, no hands.
Little kid in that tractor. And then I tap back, and then it very safely takes us back in the other lane, which is nice. The roads are mapped with LiDAR, so there's kind of a misconception where people believe that there's actually LiDAR in the car, but it's actually the roads that are mapped, and you can see coming up here very distinctly. I mean, we're going 70 miles an hour, and it's able to navigate these corners very easily and quite well. The only time I ever get nervous on corners on 4 lanes like this is when we're along a semi.
Oh, yeah,
And
definitely.
it seems uncomfortably close to semis, even when the road is straight. But that's because it knows where the center of the lane is, but we don't.
Right.
From our perception of the center of the lane is different from Super Cruise's perception of the center of the lane.
Absolutely. We've noticed that with each individual vehicle we've had that had the lane centering function. I think I hug the middle of the road ordinarily.
Right. Yeah. I think we all tend to hug one side or the other.
Yeah.
And that was the first when we first got the Tesla. That was the one thing he told me is he goes, the center of the road isn't where you think it is.
That's very true.
Very true. So it's very easy to use. All you do is, as you can see right here, I think the camera can, there's a little button, which is a Super Cruise button. You press that. When the bar turns green on the steering wheel, it means that it's active and it's lane centering, and it's basically taken over driving. Now you can intervene. So say there's something in the lane here, I could go around it a little bit. As you can see, the steering wheel has turned blue, and then I go back, I put it back into the lane, and it will turn green, and it's basically reestablished itself as being in control. So that's really kind of nice, because you don't have to, it doesn't kick out and then you don't have to reset it. It will automatically reset itself. So that's a really, really nice feature.
So explain to me how the system actually works. I mean, is it GPS? Is there more to it than that?
Well, all of the systems operate off of cameras. So every one of them has cameras around the car. The Tesla system operates basically entirely off of cameras, whereas the GM system operates with a combination of cameras and sensors.
Okay.
Now, there's a misconception that that there's LiDAR on the vehicle.
And LiDAR is what?
LiDAR is a system, and it is on some self-driving vehicles, but that's primarily, I think, Volvos and Mercedes have that. What LiDAR stands for is light detection and ranging. So essentially, if you have a LiDAR system, it gives a very detailed picture of what's think of it as like sonar except with light.
Okay.
And now GM notes that there is LiDAR technology involved, but it's not on the vehicle. It's actually LiDAR mapping of the highways.
Okay.
So all of the highways where Super Cruise is available, they have been specifically LiDAR mapped. And initially they started off with I think 200,000 miles, and that was 3 years ago. Currently they're up to somewhere around 450,000 miles. And by the end of 2025, they're saying it'll be 750,000 miles.
Nice.
So initially, it was just 4-lane roads, which makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you look at a lot of the old YouTube videos, they're like, well, you can't use it on 2-lane roads. Well, that's not true, because I use it every day on my commute, which is 30 miles of 2-lane. Now, it's not every 2-lane. There, you know, some of the side roads are included, but there's a big majority that I drive that it's included on, and it works very well. Now, this video actually will have kind of two parts. In the beginning, we'll talk about the generalities of Super Cruise and 4-lane, and then I will take you on my commute, my 2-lane commute to work, and we'll have some fun showing you the idiosyncrasies of 2-lane driving with Super Cruise.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. So is Super Cruise actually tied into Google Maps? Can I put in a destination and it'll just drive me there?
No.
Oh.
That's no is the answer. Now, if this was full self-driving,
right,
which I use the air quotes because...
You could have done that in the Tesla?
We could have done that with the Tesla,
okay,
in theory.
All right.
Okay, it never worked out in reality, but in theory you could have done it. And I think maybe in some of the bigger cities you can, but when I tested our full self-driving in the Tesla, I was not impressed.
Okay.
Now, and that's why I like this system a lot better, is because to some respects it's a little bit dumber.
Right.
And we all have that kind of neurotic friend who thinks too much about stuff and then never gets the actual project done.
Right.
That's Tesla
I see.
full self-driving. And remember in the Tesla where it would see a shadow on the ground by a
yes,
bridge and we'd have phantom braking, stuff like that?
Right.
This doesn't do that because it's dumber. And it's dumber in the respect that if there's something in the middle of the road, it's not going to avoid it. It's going to run right in, other than if it was something really big like a car.
Right, but like a piece of metal or something.
If there's a piece of metal or something, it's going to run right over it. And that's one of the problems that Teslas also have, is they just run over stuff, and that's why people tend to get more flats on semi-autonomous cars, because they're not avoiding things and you're not paying attention, and boom, you just ran it over. But back to the original question. So, is it tied in with Google Maps? And I don't think anybody has actually answered that question fully.
Okay.
My suspicion, my heavy suspicion is yes. And I can give you two reasons for that. One, it knows, GM Super Cruise knows when there's construction zones coming up. And it will slow you down, because I had construction all last summer driving on the 2-lane to work, and it would basically, when I came to a construction zone, it would shut itself off and it would not be available until I was past the construction zone. And then later in the year, when they were done with construction, in most scenarios I would have Super Cruise back for that area. And Google, when I'm looking at Google Maps when I'm doing my commute, I could see that it was marked on Google Maps. So I'm very suspicious that it's tied in with Google Maps, and I assume it probably is. The other reason I'm pretty sure it is because when we go to Hannibal, Missouri,
yes,
and Google Maps tries to take us off the road.
Oh, it wants to take us off onto this little gravel road.
Yeah, this weird route where it takes you around the city on gravel and stuff like that. Well, that also happens to be the exact place that Super Cruise shuts off and doesn't turn on until you get past that part where you'd be getting back on it. Hey everybody, it's Doc. Welcome to the channel and welcome to my commute. Today we're going to talk about Super Cruise and 2-lane highways. I use Super Cruise every day for my 30-mile commute, which is all on 2-lane rural highways. And I'm pleased to say that at this point, GM has mapped pretty much 90% of my drive. So as you can see, I'm completely hands-free. I can have my coffee. I can eat a little bit of my breakfast here. And it's actually a very relaxing drive. It's pretty nice. Now, What you need to know about Super Cruise is that it requires a mapped highway. So GM has, over the past few years, has been LiDAR mapping highways, and I think also they're tied in with Google Maps as well, because I've noticed little idiosyncrasies with Google Maps that matches the Super Cruise. And there's both positives and negatives to it, but it's mostly positives. So we need to talk about, Super Cruise is a level 2 semi-autonomous system where essentially I need to keep steering straight ahead. There are cameras that watch my eyes and my face to make sure that I'm paying attention. And if I look away, then it will signal that it's going to shut down. If I continue to look away, it'll eventually shut down and stop the car in the middle of the road, and then it'll notify OnStar. It is a subscription service, so it requires, it's like $25 a month, but my Yukon came with 3 years of free connectivity, and so I'm good. But after that, I'll have to decide whether I want to continue Super Cruise or not, which invariably I will, because I like it a lot. What Super Cruise does when you come to a city is it will slow down and you will have to take over control of the vehicle. Now, some of these smaller cities, like this is Cedar, Iowa here, for some reason, Super Cruise does not recognize it as a city. The speed limit drops to the speed limit drops to, I think, 35 overall. We just passed a 45 mile an hour speed limit, and I had to actually take it out of Super Cruise because for whatever reason it doesn't recognize it, so it would just drive through this town at 60 miles an hour or whatever you have Super Cruise set at. The next city that we come to, it will shut down, and I will show you that. I'll have my coffee in the meantime. So as we're coming to the city, you'll notice that Super Cruise will disengage. You'll see the lights turn red, and then it'll tell me that I need to take over, which should be happening right about now. And if I let it go, it would continue to slow the vehicle down and stop. But what I did was I applied a little pressure to the gas, and essentially it kicked in adaptive cruise at the same settings that I had Super Cruise set at. Now we'll slow down. One of the things I can appreciate about this system is the fact that it really knows the highways very well, because the highways are LiDAR mapped. And so, like you can see here, we're coming up on a fairly tight corner. I have the cruise control set at 60 miles an hour. There's no one coming in the other lane in the other direction, so I'm going to let it navigate the corner by itself. I'm going to keep my hands near the steering wheel. As you can see, we're slowing down just a little bit, a couple of 3 miles per hour, so we can safely take this corner. And we've navigated perfectly through the corner, and we're now accelerating back to the 60 miles an hour that I originally had it set for. So I think there's a bit of safety built into the system, whereas if you had a Tesla, it would just smoke that corner at whatever speed you had it set at. And having tested the Toyota with Safety Sense 3.0, it just can't navigate the corner. Eventually crosses the center line, and then it gives up midway through the corner, which is exactly where you don't want it to give up at. I've been going on and on about how great Super Cruise is, but to be completely fair and balanced, there are some places where it doesn't shine so well. Right now is one of them, where we're getting a pretty stiff crosswind, and you get this kind of seesawing effect with the steering. The other part where it really doesn't work well is at night in the rain when there's a lot of glare. Also, obviously, if the highways aren't well painted, then you're going to have a little bit of an issue. GM says you shouldn't use it in tunnels. I'm not sure exactly why that is. Maybe it's because you lose the GPS aspect of it. And also, there is the part about it being a subscription, and you have to pay for access to Super Cruise. So, I guess not everything in life is free. As you guys can see, I'm really enamored with the Super Cruise system. And I really think that it's one of the best semi-autonomous driving aids there is out there. It's very easy to use. It is getting better every day as far as more and more roads being mapped. I think that the few little downsides that it has is really a lot less than you find with some of the other semi-autonomous systems. And I think even though it requires a subscription service, that once my free subscription is done, I will probably continue it because I like it that much. On that note, you guys have a great day. We'll see you out there. Thanks for watching the video.